Hello and welcome to the latest episode of my knitting and crafting podcast. My name on Instagram is Orchid's Heart and I'm based in Birmingham in England. It's late February now. My last episode I didn't upload that long ago, depending on how long it takes me to put this one up. But in reality I filmed it about a month ago. So yeah, we had about a week where it felt like spring was coming, but as you might be able to tell by the light and what I'm wearing, I feel like winter has come back. I've got the fire going, so if you hear any crackling, that's why, but I've only just started it, so it's quite cold in here. It's about 12 degrees to be honest. I have been working with a hot water bottle up my jumper, but I'm sparing you that visual pleasure for this podcast. I love the fire, but sometimes when you're working and concentrating, it's quite difficult to keep getting up, especially in meetings and things, to keep feeding the fire. So I must admit today I was being a bit lazy. But yes, so how's everybody doing? I'm going to sit back on the sofa a bit, be a bit more comfortable. Yeah, so it got cold again, really cold. We've had lots of really beautiful foggy icy mornings, but I have to be honest, I'm a bit done with winter now, and I would like it to be spring big time. I'm enjoying a really good hot chocolate and it's rose and cardamom flavoured. It's by Hearth Chocolate, which is a company down south. And I particularly like this one because some of the others does have salt in it, which I can taste. They're amazing, but I'm quite sensitive to salt. And this one doesn't have salt in. It was like their Valentine's blend. And I thought rose and cardamom hot chocolate could either be really nice or really gross. I actually really like it. But you're not here to hear about my drinks. So I'm wearing a lot of knitwear. I'm wearing my Maja cardigan. I can't remember the designer. So that's a colourwork cardigan. I knit mine in a combination of Lettlopi, Plutlopi and leftover Brooklyn Tweed Loft or Shelter for the red. It was left over from my hat. I don't think I did any modifications for this. Pretty much knit it as pattern. And I wear this tons. I think this was my first steeked garment. And it was really, really enjoyable because it's quite a thick knit. So it's on quite big needles, so it works up quite quickly. And you do like a bit of colour work, a bit of plain knitting, you get bored of that, and then you do a bit more colour work. And I am actually going to be knitting another one of these at some point this year because my mother-in-law has asked for one, but in a different yarn, so that'll be fun. That'll happen at some point. She's still deciding on her colours. Underneath that, I'm wearing another Icelandic knit. I'm wearing my Tulip pullover, and that's in 2 strands of Plutlopi and a strand of Mohair. And then underneath that, I'm wearing my finished object from last time, which is my Unamoured defence cowl in like a mystery DK that I bought on holiday. And with all of those layers of wool, I am just about feeling okay. I probably could do with some fingerless gloves on and a hat as well, but that might be overkill. But yes, so spring should be coming soon and that's very exciting. So I have 2 finished objects and 2 whips. Another whip which I'm not going to share with you because nothing's changed. And then some like imminent plans. So I'll start with the more boring finished object and then share with you the more exciting finished object. So the first finished object, finally I finished this Sophie Scarf, which is very bright. This is everybody's been knitting these, haven't they? But before Christmas I decided I'd cast one on as a bit of a travel knit to give to my mum for Christmas. That obviously didn't happen. So I finished this a couple of days ago and blocked it because it was quite small, it did dry quite quickly. And I've knit this with 2 strands of the Petite Lambswool by Biches, which I won in a giveaway. And it's a bit bright for me, but I actually think my mum does quite like this colour. So I'm going to give it to her for Mother's Day instead. I bought her some patchouli essential oil, which is like one of her favourite smells. So I'm going to give her those two things for Mother's Day. So I think that's quite a nice gift. I did debate putting it in a box to put aside for Christmas next year. But, you know, I'd have to buy something for Mother's Day and I'd rather give her something I've made. So, yeah. And if she doesn't like it, because there is a strong chance she won't, I will over dye it a bit darker and then I'll use it. But I am hoping that she'll like it. The 2 strands of the Petite Lambswool, I will admit, were a bit dense. Now that I've blocked it, it's a bit better, but it was a bit dense to start with. So I think if I was to do something similar again with 2 strands of like a similar light fingering, then maybe I'd go up half a needle size so that it wasn't quite as dense. And I think that's why it took me a long time to knit it, because I actually got, like, it didn't feel that comfortable on my hands to work on, and so I didn't find it very enjoyable. And I also kept losing track where I was with the increases or decreases. I think this is something that Young Folk Knits mentioned, but because they're all hidden in the border, you can't really see them, and so it gets a bit confusing. And I was using a row counter, but I still just kept losing track, because if it's something you're doing without focusing on it, like on a train or watching a film or something like that, or in a work meeting, sometimes you do a row without changing the counter, and then it gets quite confusing. So, but it's alright, it's good enough. I don't think you can really notice the places where perhaps I went a bit rogue, so it's fine. But the the finished object I'm really excited about, and I did want to wear today, and I've been really wanting to wear it. I've been putting off because I wanted to show it to you, and I did want to wear it in today's episode, but I have to be honest, it was so cold. But maybe I will put it on for a moment to show you. But I've finally finished my Seasons cardigan by Ozetta. So it's this all over half fisherman's rib cardigan. You start by casting on and doing a bit of the neckband, picking up the stitches, doing the other bit of the neckband, and then working out from there. You do the button band at the same time as the body of the cardigan, so you have DP ends attached to your button band because they're a smaller needle size than the rest of the body. So it is a bit fiddly to construct. But once I got into the swing of it, I really enjoyed it. I don't think I did any modifications other than probably didn't do the same cast on and bind off method, because I always do the old Norwegian cast on, and when I bind off, I tend to bind off in pattern but on a larger needle. So that's all I did, and it's plenty stretch enough for me. Yeah, so I'll see if I can get it on over my tulip. I mean, it's basically the same colour. Ooh. Oh, there was a modification I made. I'll tell you about that in a second. Okay, so this isn't how I'll style it, I will say that. Do like an awkward hover situation. So there we go. So I think it's a really nice shape. The sleeves are quite big, and then they do come in a bit. I've used wooden buttons, which I did actually rub with beeswax because they were too light to start with, I thought, against the colour of the yarn, which, by the way, is Gilliat. If you can see, it's Gilliat by Rerum Natura in the colour Poivre et Sel, salt and pepper, which I initially wasn't sure about, but to be honest, I really like it, and I think it will go with a lot of things. It will go with my jeans, and it's a good length over dresses and skirts and things like that. If I remember to, I'll pop in some pictures of different outfits. So yeah, I am aware though, because it's a merino, that it might bobble a lot. I don't know, because it's not hairy, it's really soft. It's definitely a yarn that you could wear on bare skin, so I don't know how it's going to wear. So I was kind of just holding off to show you guys whilst it was new. Before I start wearing it, I think I'll wear it loads to work because I can wear it on bare skin. And so I can wear it over thinner tops and things like that. And when we transition into being slightly warmer weather, I think I'll wear it loads then as well. And maybe I will wear it over jumpers, seeing as it does seem to fit. I have a couple of dresses I've made that have quite big baggy sleeves and like crossover in the front, and I really struggle to wear knitwear over those because they have quite big sleeves, and this does actually fit over that sleeve. So, I mean, it does scrunch it in a bit, but it does fit over without feeling too claustrophobic. So I suspect this will be really good with those dresses as well. So I'm really excited about that. The only modification I made was the buttonholes. So I talked about this more in the last podcast, but because the rib is 1x1 rib and the buttonholes are a 2-stitch buttonhole, the way she has you do the buttonholes, it looks really messy because you need a bigger buttonhole because of the width and the chunkiness of the garment. You need a bigger button. A small button would look lost. So a 1-stitch buttonhole in the 1x1 rib wouldn't really work. It would throw the garment off balance. So I did something different, which I'm sorry I can't explain because I don't know what I did. And it's a bit neater. I think I did like knit front back, purl front back. No, sorry, I think I bound off 2 stitches on one row, and then when I was going back over it, I did like knit front back, purl front back to get those 2 stitches back again, or something like that. Yeah. Just sort of like, I don't know, fudged it a bit. So, yes. So I'm really pleased with that. It's such a squishy, nice feeling garment. And I used just over 4 balls of the Gilliat, so I've got almost a whole ball left. But I do have another one in like a forest green. I think it's the colour Forest. So I might save those for some kind of colour work accessory or something like that. I think that would be really nice. Or save it, and if I have any more left over in the future, then maybe I will make a colour work jumper of some kind. That could be quite good. So yeah, that's both of my finished objects. I'm just going to grab something. So I just grabbed some hand cream. One of my crafting activities from the other night was I did make some more hand cream. I quite often make my own moisturiser. It's something, it took me a while to come up with a recipe that I like, but I do really enjoy it. And I bought these silicone travel, I guess they're meant for like shampoo and stuff, squeezy tubes, so that I can have the squeezy tube experience with hand cream, because I got a bit sick of carrying jam jars around with me everywhere. And sometimes it's a bit difficult getting it out, especially when you're at the bottom. Okay. So my whips. So one of the projects that I said in my projects for this year that I was going to do was the Val shawl by A Crafter's Tale. And I have done, I think, half. So I can't stretch it out completely because this is as long as the cord is and there's stoppers on the end. So you do like this crescent shape, and then there is a border. So actually it'll be this way up. There is a border with a really lovely leafy cable design on it. So, but this bit, I don't know if you can see, has like a texture. It has like these little, she calls them catkin stitches, little bobbly bits. And so they're scattered all over. And I'm knitting this in a naturally dyed yarn by Ozetta or Isle of Skye Natural Dye Company. and it's dyed with, I believe, woad and indigo, and it's like this really gorgeous green, and it's on a 75% BFL, 25% Gotland base. And I bought some yarn with the same makeup of bases from Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co a few years ago, and I made a shawl with it. And though the colour wasn't really a totally me colour, it wasn't the colour I expected when it arrived. The feel of it was like the most amazing thing ever. I absolutely loved it. So when I saw this base at Gilliat, I had to buy it, and the colour is just so me. So I have made a modification though. I have changed the way I'm doing the edge. So some of you might remember that I actually did cast the shawl on twice in this yarn last year, and I abandoned it because the border was just too tight. So with the other shawl I made, I had the same problem, and it like curls along the edge, and it never lies flat, and it really irritates me. But it took me a long time to knit that. I was quite new at knitting still. It was one of my first, I think it was my first like lace shawl that I did. It was definitely my first shawl. And yeah, I didn't really 100% know what I was doing, but it went well. Well, it was successful in terms of I did what the pattern did and it came out looking like the pattern, but I didn't really like the edge. And so I've been trying to cast on, because crescent shawls are my favourite shape to wear, a similar kind of style pattern for quite a while, and it's not been working out. I was watching, at the recommendation of somebody who watches this podcast, I was watching Little Big Knits because they said that she talks about that and explains what she does to mitigate that problem. Now, I did try to make a reel and it wasn't really that successful. I'm going to try again because I tried explaining it verbally to a friend and she got confused. And I thought it'd be quite a good thing to show how to do, because for me it's been a complete game changer, because this isn't tight at all and it's not curling up. So I'm really excited. Sorry, I'm probably coughing because of the fire. So what I did was, so this pattern has a knit to yarn over edge, and what Little Big Knits does, sorry my throat's really tickly. Have I stopped? I think so. So what she suggested to do was do an I-cord edge, but knitted twice. So she knits 3, puts those needles back onto the left hand needle, knits them again, does the yarn over increase, does the rest of the row until there's 3 stitches left, yarns over, and then slips the last 3 stitches purlwise with yarn in front. Turns it round, knits the first 3 stitches, so you're doing the same thing again, slip it back onto your left hand needle, knit them again, yarn over, do the row, yarn over, slip 3 stitches purlwise with yarn in front. So you end up knitting the first 3 stitches twice each time. Now my border had 2 stitches, not 3, and I don't know if it works the same way with 2 stitches, but I couldn't be bothered finding out, so I thought I'll just do 3 stitches. So that meant that I had, once I'd cast on the right number of stitches, I had 2 stitches less within my shawl because I had 2 more on the outside. So I did 1 more row of increases, like either end, and then worked back with no increases, no yarn over, so that I was back to the front right side again to start doing the pattern, if that made sense. So yes, so I pretty much did the entire main body of the shawl in about a week and a half because the yarn just feels so good. And the only reason why I've stopped is because I'm currently knitting a couple of presents for somebody and I want to get those finished so I can send them off. But really, I cannot wait to get back into this because I don't think it'll take me very long to do the cable border. So next time I will be wearing this and I'll be loving it, I'm sure. And then my next whip has not gotten very far. So I mentioned that I wanted to knit the Eastwind by Emily Foden out of this Lettlopi and this Mohair. This Mohair is like a purpley colour and it's called Cowl, or it's by Cowl. In the colour Rust, but this is like almost impossible to find in England, to be honest. I don't think it's a very popular yarn. And this is the Lettlopi by Wool Dreamers. So I have started, which is more than last time. I've done about this much. And so it has a bit of a cable at one end and then a texture. I was enjoying it, but I have to be honest, it's a knit where I have to think about it because you're kind of managing 2 or 3 sections of information at the same time. There's a certain like rhythm you've got to follow for the pattern, for the texture, and then another rhythm that you've got to follow for the cable. And it is manageable, but I had to write out the rows to keep track because I was getting confused. So I'm finding it quite a long process. Also because it's unspun, I have to knit it at home, I can't take it out. And if I'm honest, every time I've sat down to watch TV, I've just wanted to knit on my green shawl. So that was meant to be my take it out and about easy knit, but I just blasted through it in a week and a half, which was not what I was intending to do. I just wanted to wear it. And it was easy and I was tired. So yeah, this hasn't really progressed very much. So I'm a little bit annoyed with myself about that. And if I'm going to be honest, the next whip that I'm going to cast on, I will probably end up doing the same thing where I'll just obsessively knit on it until it's done and this won't progress any further. But I'm going to try, and with that one, knit on it until I get to the plain stockinette section and then use that as my take it out and about project and try and work on this in the evenings because it is enjoyable. I can't really watch TV whilst knitting on it, but that's a good thing really. I need to watch less TV. So there we go, that's that one. And when I say writing out the rows, I don't mean fully. It's like you've got, there's 6 cable rows and 8 body rows, and you start on cable row 1 but body row 7 or something like that. And then so the next row you do body row 8, cable row 2, and then cable row 3, body row 1, 2, 4, 5, 3, 4, 6, 1, 5, etc. And that's what I was finding confusing. So that's all I was writing out. But yes, so yeah, so future projects, I did for my birthday order, which was in January, some dye to order Surrey from the dyer Nervous Fibre, and it arrived a couple of days ago. I believe this colour is called Idaz. There is no information on the ball band, which, if I was going to let this sit in stash, maybe would annoy me a bit. But because I am using it right away, it's not really a big deal. And if any of it does end up staying in stash, perhaps I will make a note on it. But to be honest, I guess fluff is fluff. I really like her pictures actually. And I have these which were given to me in a yarn trade a couple of years ago. And I've shared it before. I'm not really sure what it's called. Boucle Laine? Boucle Laine? I don't know, it's a French yarn. And these colours are really me. And I wanted to use them for something, but 2 skeins of 4-ply, wasn't really sure what to do with it. And wanted it to be something substantial. And obviously the thing everyone's talking about at the moment is the Lento. So I am very late going to join the Lento Cowl. I'm going to cast this on either tonight or tomorrow, but mine's going to be a bit different. I'm either going to stripe these or colour block them and then carry a strand of this all the way through, but I'm going to have a dark green contrast rib because I haven't got quite enough of one of these, it might be the fluff, to do the fluff all the way through. So this is 4-ply, this is lace weight, and my contrast is a DK. So I have a swatch of the fluff. Sorry, I'm just grabbing it if you can hear me. So this is the swatch. So I don't know if you can see, but I have striped the brown with the yellow. So it's brown, yellow, and then carried the mohair throughout. So not the mohair, the suri. It was a bit fiddly kind of doing that. So I don't know whether I might be more inclined just to colour block or just deal with it being annoying. I haven't really decided. We might just see how it goes when I start. I'm not sure. Or whether I will just cut the ends and weave the ends in. It's on a 6mm needle, so it's quite a drapey gauge. And that's how you manage to get a whole jumper out of 2 skeins of 4-ply and 2 skeins of fuzz. So it is quite light and airy. And I was going to knit it as a cardigan and steek it, but I have actually decided I'm probably just going to do it as a jumper and have it as quite a basic knit. Because I think it will be still quite light and airy. And it is next to skin soft. So I really like my Icelandic woolly jumpers, but sometimes it's a bit tricky wearing them in certain situations. At home it's not an issue because I wear loads of clothes at home, as you can tell, but not always. So yeah, I like to have a variety of different textures for different things. So that's exciting. And then my next soon to be a whip, once I finish my other shawl, is going to be the Colour Craze shawl. So this is a shawl I have tried to knit before, but didn't like my yarn combination. And then didn't like my colour combination. So tried again. Was it the yarn? Did I say yarn or colour? It was both. But I tried with 2 different combinations. And in my projects for this year video, I said I was going to use a skein of Natural Sock 4-ply by Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co. and some mini skeins. However, when I was looking at the colour combination of the main skein with the others, I was like, I'm not sure. And in the end, I decided it wasn't making me excited. And then somebody I follow on Instagram posted a free postage weekend on her yarn. And her yarn is just absolutely stunning. And I don't know why or how I've managed to hold off not buying any before. And I know I'm not buying any yarn this year, except I just showed you 2 skeins of mohair, suri. I technically did buy, even if it was a birthday present from somebody. I did buy this, but it is going to be used in that project that I said I was going to do with other stash yarn. And I am going to make a pair of socks out of that other skein of yarn. So the skein I bought is this. I just think it's absolutely bloody gorgeous. It's also naturally dyed. She does something called eco printing. And it has all of those lovely colours. So the mini skeins I'm going to use with it are these pinks. And then I'm going to use an undyed beige cone to go with it for some higher contrast. So it is going to be overwhelmingly pink, but this has quite a lot of purple and other stuff in it. So it might be that I introduce a bit of another colour. We shall see how it goes if I decide it needs that bit of lift, if the oatmeal doesn't do enough. But I did kind of want like a low contrast, but still fun. But I mean, this has bits of golden, purple, maybe even a bit of a green. It's so beautiful. And it's by a lady called Tracy Priestley, and her company is called Handmade Over Yonder. and she's in Orkney. And it arrived in the most beautiful package. It was such a delight. And to be honest, I got as much pleasure out of receiving that one skein than I would like a bigger, more decadent yarn order. So that really made me think, you know, like that was really exciting receiving that. So beautiful. So, I mean, I'm not going to do a no buy, no yarn at all this year because that's unrealistic and that's a bit miserable. But I am going to try and be much more considered about my yarn purchases and overwhelmingly use what I've already got, which I think I'm doing really well with, because that Lento that I'm knitting, I'm going to use 2.5 skeins from Stash and then the 2 skeins of Suri that I bought. My shawl I knit with yarn that I bought last year on holiday. My jumper, well sorry, the cardigan was yarn that I bought last year. I mean, admittedly we're only in February, so it wasn't that long ago. And the colour crease shawl that I just showed you, the mini skeins, that's going to be a lot of Stash yarn. Yeah, I mean the Eastwind was new yarn. I didn't have anything in my stash to knit that pattern with. So I'm doing okay. Could do better, but I'm doing okay. So, but the important thing is I'm really enjoying my knitting at the moment. I'm not knitting on anything that's actively annoying me. And that's quite important because, I mean, to be honest, that's why I've not really been working on the Eastwind. But I'm hoping that I will get at least 2 of the panels done before it gets warm. And then I can always pick it up again at the tail end of summer, maybe. Ideally, I'd like to get the whole thing knit up before it gets too warm, but I don't know if that's realistic or not. I think if I really focused on it, I could, but I don't know whether that might kill the enjoyment for me, so we'll see. But that's all my knitting at the moment. I can't show the other things because of presents. I have been knitting a lot. I've been really getting into it. And yeah, the only other thing that I've been really focusing on is my quilt. And I thought I would just show you quickly how it's looking, if that's possible, because this is quite long. So there is this lino print artist in America called Addie Best, and I am one of her patrons at the moment because it's the only way from England that I could buy her patches. So that means I don't get to choose, I just get the Patreon patch, which is like a Patreon specific patch every month in the mail. And so I've been a patron of hers now for a year, so I have 12 of her patches, and they're all different things. They're birds, cutlery, I've got some more in front of me. I've got a sun, that might be upside down, no it's not. A sun, quilt patch, a unicorn, and then an acorn. I quite like that one. I mean, I like all of them, but there's a couple that came in colours that aren't really in keeping with my colours, like in a really bright red and a really dark blue. But otherwise, I think I've got 11 that I'm going to use because I've had it just over a year. And I'm making an 11 square by 11 square quilt, and then with a border. So that will comprise of half plain patches and then half quilted patches. And these are all patches made from leftovers from my clothes. So they're all in my colours. So there's a lot of Merchant & Mills linen in here, and other bits and bobs. And I have been really enjoying it, but it's also really overwhelming, a big project. I have now made, 28 out of, no, it must be more than that. I've got to make 62 plain squares and 62 patterned blocks, I think. And I think I've got 28 left to make, and I've made about 40. I've got a stack in front of me of ones that I've made. Yeah, so that sounds about right. I've sewn up everything I've cut up so far into blocks, but not into strips. I'm not going to sew any more into strips until I've finished making all of my blocks, so I can lay it all out on the floor and make sure the colours are evenly distributed. but I really wanted to see how they would start to look like next to each other, because it makes such a big difference. Now, none of this is straight, all of the angles are off, everything's wonky, nothing matches up properly, but I'm going with it. I knew it would never be that accurate because I'm not a very accurate person, and I want this to be as enjoyable as possible, because this isn't about perfection. This is about using up my scraps in an enjoyable way that will give me a beautiful object that I can have forever. And yeah, so this probably will take me the rest of the year. I will be hand quilting it, and I don't know how I'm going to do that because I don't really want to stitch through the patches. So I am thinking that if I do it by hand, I might just be able to feed the thread behind the patch and then come back out underneath. But in terms of like how big it's going to be, I don't know how I'm going to handle it, to be honest. I'm not going to buy a quilting frame just to do one quilt, so I'm going to have to try and DIY something. I don't know if I can use like a clothing area, whether that's possible. So if anybody has any ideas of like common household things they think I could use that might work, let me know, because I haven't got a clue. So yes. But that's everything I'm working on at the moment, so that's everything I've got to share for today, and I will talk to you again in a few weeks. So thank you, and talk to you soon. Oh, one last thing. I did post in the end of my last video saying that one of the person that won the YouTube version of the giveaway that I did around Christmas time, her name is Nessie. I never heard back from her. If you do see this, Nessie, if you don't reach out to me from about, I don't know, 2 weeks after I post this, I'm going to pick someone else to send it out to, because I still have the gift upstairs and I would like to send it out to somebody. So thank you very much, and have a good couple of weeks until I speak to you soon. Bye.